Hey, Jenny Ponzuric here. This is part 6 in our 6-part series about the IEP process. In this series, we have already discussed evaluation results and some parts of the IEP meeting. Today, I wanted to ask you a question about the LRE Continuum. As a consultant with multiple districts over the past few years, I have noticed that some school districts have clear guidance for their staff about the steps to take should a student need a more restrictive environment or a much less restrictive environment. However, for some school districts, the guidance is not as clear. As we're heading into this new school year, I tend to work frequently with new hires. Whether it's a new school psychologist, speech and language pathologist, or education specialist, there are many questions that come up regarding the process of moving a student up or down the LRE continuum. When someone on the IEP team believes that a student may need to move up or down this continuum, here are some considerations. Before this is considered by the IEP team, it can be helpful to affirm that the following statements are true. Number 1, the student's IEP is being followed with fidelity. Number 2, the student's accommodations are appropriate and being followed with fidelity. Number 3, if the student has any behavioral concerns, there are behavioral goals and possibly a behavior plan are included in the student's IEP. Number 4, if the student has social emotional concerns, do we have appropriate goals and services included in the student's IEP? And last, the student's academic goals are appropriate based on the current level of functioning. If any of the above statements are not true, it can be useful to document the reason why. It can also be useful and helpful to document which strategies have already been attempted, if appropriate, which may include, we held another IEP meeting. We added or updated goals. We added or updated services. We may need to increase the number of minutes for a specific service. Do we need a change in accommodations? Have we consulted with other people on campus, administrators, school psychologists, school counselors, other service providers? Once these things have been considered, having data to support this decision can be helpful. Which data sources would be most useful to support this change? It could be work samples, progress monitoring data, behavior data. The next thing to address is whether a student observation by someone is appropriate before this change occurs. It can be helpful for someone who is not always working with a student every single day to come in and give some objective feedback. Lastly, does the district have any additional considerations when considering changes on the LRE continuum? For example, before a transition from elementary to middle school or middle school to high school. Check out my handout summarizing the information from this video. I hope you found this first video series helpful. If there are any specific topics you would like for me to address in future series, please feel free to let me know. That concludes another episode of the Prepared School Psych podcast, and I hope today's discussion equipped you not just with knowledge, but also the confidence to take action. Remember, every conversation we have and every resource we share builds a bridge towards a more inclusive and empowering learning landscape for our students. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast for more insightful conversations and resources to support your journey. Share this podcast with colleagues. We would love it if you would also rate and review the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Just a reminder, everyone, the information and advice provided in this podcast are for guidance purposes only, and all listeners are required to follow both federal and state law and their own school district guidelines and policies. Thank you.